Welcome everyone to our Meal Prep Like a Pro webinar. It's National Nutrition Month, so we're trying to do something exciting for our employees to help them improve their eating habits. And thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day today to join us and learn something about this wonderful strategy, which is called meal prepping. My name is Olga Hayes. I am with Sharp Best Health, and this is our employee wellness program. I'm the wellness program coordinator, and I'm joined here by Janice. Right, Janice? Janice is a wellness support specialist, and specifically, Janice is in charge of two hospitals, Sharp Chula Vista and Sharp Grossman Hospital. So she's in charge of wellness programming for those two large sites. Janice, you want to do the lineup?
Yes, so today's lineup is what is meal prep, the difference between meal prepping and meal planning, the benefits of meal prep, steps to meal prep, best practices and helpful tips, and then Q&A. And again, I do want to go ahead and share with you all that if you have any questions in the moment, very casual, go ahead and send them. I'll moderate for Olga and myself and answer questions as we go. And if I happen to maybe oversee your question, don't worry, we'll get to the end of it when we do our actual Q&A. So thank you all again for joining us.
Yeah, we're excited.
So we just want to find out what you all would want to take away from today's webinar. So if you could utilize the chat box and just type in there, whether you're a beginner, or even if this is just all foreign to you, you want to start something, or pretty intermediate or a pro, or at whatever level you're on as far as, meal prepping goes, we'd like to know what takeaway you would like to get out of this webinar. And we hope that we can answer it during this webinar, but if not, we would like to go back and make sure that we get that information to you as well. We have these ideas in our head about what we anticipate you guys are wanting to know, and there's other questions out there that we may not answer. So go ahead and ask away throughout the webinar.
Correct. Yeah, and if you want to speak up, and instead of putting your comment in the chat, you can just tell us what you're expecting and why you joined us today. We can, spend a few seconds just kind of talking a little bit. Since it's a webinar, we want it to be interactive. Feel free to speak up, unmute yourself, and say why you joined us today.
Okay, so some of those comments so far, Olga, is, we have beginner level here. They want to see how to even start. So this is a really great webinar for you. Okay. And also how to make meal prep easy and fun and keep at it. So really good information.
Wonderful. I think, Janice, we kind of have all this information lined up, right, for today.
We sure do.
So again, we are excited. So let's dive in. What is meal prep, right? So first of all, before we even start, I want to kind of differentiate between what meal prep is and what meal prep isn't, right? So meal prep in its official definition is basically an idea or a concept of dedicating a certain amount of time in your week, once or twice a week, to cook your meals in advance for the week ahead. You either batch cook ingredients for certain meals, or you prepare full meals and then portion them out in containers for the week ahead. So that is what meal prep in a nutshell is. And it's very, very helpful for people who are extremely busy because it saves a lot of time, but also meal prep. And if you're interested in managing your weight a little better, there have been some studies that have shown that meal prep strategy is very, very efficient or effective for people who are trying to manage their weight, because they're planning their meals ahead, they're planning their recipes ahead, they're planning their portions ahead of time. So it keeps them on track. It's really helping them to stay on the path of healthy eating. So it's a wonderful, wonderful tool to keep in mind if you're just trying to manage your weight a little better. So what meal prep isn't is basically it's gonna be different for anyone, and it's not one size fits all. And today we'll learn that there are different methods of meal prep. And it's not that we're trying to make it more complicated for you, but we just wanted to share how there are different variations of meal prep, and you can choose whatever works for you, and therefore it's not the same for everyone, right? It's not the same every week. It's not the same for every household. It is whatever it works best for you. And just to make it clear, we probably all know we talked about meal planning, right? And now we're talking about meal prepping. So what is meal planning versus meal prep? So meal planning is basically, it's a framework for your entire menu for the week, right? If you want to plan your entire menu for the week, this is called meal planning. You're asking yourself, what's for dinner? What's for breakfast? What's for lunch? You're mapping those meals out for the entire week. You know, you're saying on Monday, this is what I'm eating for breakfast. This is what I'm eating for lunch. This is what I'm eating for dinner. Then you are doing the same thing for Tuesday and for Wednesday. So you're planning your entire week. You're putting your groceries list together. You go shopping for groceries. You're planning it out. Now, meal prep, it's a step in the meal planning process. It's, you cannot, basically, you cannot meal prep without meal planning first, right? So meal prep is part of the meal planning process. Once you decided on your meals, you want to meal prep ahead of time, some of them if you want. And that's what we're going to be learning today, how to actually do the meal prep for your meal planning. I hope it's making sense. Is it? Can be. So you can be a meal planner, but not meal prepper. But you can't be meal prepper without being a meal planner. So you have to plan your meals first before you prep for them. All right, Janice.
Yes. So all really good information for starters, Olga. So benefits of meal prep. We already know that it can ultimately save time throughout your week. You're not having to worry, you know, what am I going to pull out of the fridge for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, for example. It's already made for you. So if you've already done all that, for example, on Sunday, you're ready for the week ahead. It can help save money. You're not in a pinch wondering, for example, you know, I can't put these, you know, ingredients together. I didn't meal prep this week, meal plan this week. So I'm now spending $15 at the cafeteria. And that adds up when essentially when you meal prep, depending on, you know, your ingredients, what you've planned out for the week, it could range, like a total lunch could range between $5 and $7, depending on what you've made, what you prepared, you know, your snacks involved, your fruit involved, your produce and the protein. So range is about that. So you're cutting it in half what you would have spent on food to go. So can help save money is one of them. You can help with your weight control, and Olga just mentioned that. It's your decision what ingredients are used and what portions are served.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It can contribute to a nutritionally balanced diet as well. It's because you're planning this out. You're thinking ahead and not just grabbing a bag of chips in the pantry because it's just there and convenient and you're out the door. You've pre-planned. It can reduce your stress as you avoid last minute decisions, which I mentioned earlier, unhealthy decisions.
Yeah, and I think this is just something that we are really looking to get out of meal prep, right? Not to be stressed out, what's for dinner tomorrow, what's for dinner today. It's just really having that all mapped out really makes it, gives us a peace of mind for the week ahead.
Right.
Yeah. There's a question.
Yeah, so on average, how many hours do you believe it takes to meal prep 5 meals? Say you've set some time on Sunday and you've got your recipes pulled out, you've gone grocery shopping. Now, how much time does this involve? Of course, it involves, you know, basically what recipes you've selected and all that time, you know, you'll need to cook, chop, wash, all that into play. We'd like to hear your answers in the chat box about how many hours on average you think it takes to prepare 5 lunches for the week. And the next slides, Olga will eventually answer this. Jade says 2, about 3 hours for the next one. 2 to 3 hours seems to be the, okay. 2 to 3 hours, Olga's our average.
Yeah, Good guesses, good answers, good guesses. Very well. Well done. All right, well, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of the meal prep process. Again, we are hoping to provide as much helpful information as possible. However, if we leave something unsaid or unanswered, please let us know so we can improve this presentation for the future. All right, so before we start talking about the meal prep in general, or the process of meal prep, we need to decide for ourselves which meal prep method is right for us. And as I mentioned earlier, there are different ways to meal prep. And by the way, even if you ever had leftovers from dinner and you packed them for your lunch tomorrow, even that can be considered a mini version of meal prepping, right? So the idea is to be intentional about what you're eating the next day and preparing that meal ahead of time. So that leftover meal that you had tonight and you are leaving it for tomorrow's lunch, that counts. But there are four various main meal prep strategies out there. So one of them is make ahead meals. Second is batch cooking and then freezing. The third one is individually portioned meals. And the fourth one is prepared ingredients for the future meals. So let's look into each of them ahead of time. And I'm sure we don't even have to probably explain much about each of those strategies, but just to remind everyone. So make ahead meals are basically meals that are complete and cooked in advance in large portions. Like think a pot of soup or stew, right? And you can use that meal to reheat for dinner or lunch later on during the week, but you make that large portion of it. The second strategy is batch cooking and freezing. It's very similar to the first strategy where you make ahead meals in large portions, except this is where you cook your meal in large portion and then you freeze it to use later. And you can actually freeze it and use weeks later or even months later. Just need to be mindful of the dates when you cook that meal. Make sure to label your Ziploc bags with the date when it went into the freezer. And then Janice actually will talk about the timing, how long things can be frozen for or refrigerated for. But yeah, batch cooking is another strategy. Think about making chili recipe and then putting them into a Ziploc bags and then freezing them for weeks, or steaming a large pot of rice and freezing it to use later. And we've all done that before, right? It's just we never thought about it as a meal prep strategy, but it is actually a meal prep strategy. Individually portioned meals, I think this is the strategy that people think most of when they think about meal prepping, right? So basically you prepare your entire recipe and you make enough to last you a few meals, and then you portion them out into single serving containers to eat later on during the week. So that is what we most often think about when we think about meal prepping. Think about like salads in a mason jar, for example, or making rice and vegetables and chicken and portion them out into single serving Tupperware containers and then taking them to work next day. So that's what individually portioned meals mean. And the last strategy for meal prep is prepared ingredients. And that's something we've done as well, most of us. So that's when we do a bunch of chopping and peeling and slicing of different ingredients, roasting vegetables, making all the chicken ahead of time, making all the rice ahead of time. And then you just throw it all together into a recipe later on when you're about to eat, right? Because you want to have that fresh meal done quickly. So you prepare all the ingredients at once, but you're not preparing the actual recipe. But you're still saving yourself a lot of time by being prepared ahead. So bottom line, there are a lot of wonderful ways to meal prep, a lot of strategies. So it all depends on your goals, on your schedules, on your meal preferences. And by the way, you can also mix and match those strategies as you go along with your meal prep skills. And, but we would recommend that to start, if you're a beginner, start by choosing just the most appealing method, the one that you can think you can tackle, and then just slowly experiment with that one method first, and then start adding maybe elements of other strategies to suit your schedule and your circumstances.
So
Any
Olga,
questions about this? Yeah.
yeah, there's a comment here. Some people say one person has said that they chop mushrooms and asparagus and then freeze them. There's a question posed to that asking if it tastes the same when they're thawed. So there's, you can steam your vegetables, blanch them, roast them. Yep. And so Judy has a comment saying, do you freeze them raw or slightly cook first? I think I've watched on
Vegetables?
videos, yeah, for vegetables. I think I watched on videos to slightly cook, either steam or blanch, and then set them in the freezer. Kind of cook them first, because it's different when you thaw frozen from being fresh without cooking them first, or slightly
Yeah.
cook them first.
Yeah.
It's a different texture.
It's a different texture. Yeah, it depends on what you prefer in your recipe, but we all know the frozen vegetables, what they taste like, right? So if you don't mind using them in your recipe, that's fine. But if you would like it to be more cooked, it's okay to cook them first. But this is one of those things that Janice and I should probably look into, right? And maybe we can provide a better answer after we do a little bit of research. But that's a great question.
Yeah, when I did a podcast, gosh, a couple years back, about frozen vegetables, they're actually like a quick flash blanch first, and then they're taken out, and it preserves the coloring and the nutrients best that way. And then you put them in your portioned out Ziploc bags or containers in the freezer.
Yeah, I want to say that personally, I would probably not freeze cooked vegetables. I can understand the convenience of it, but I would probably just use the frozen vegetables. But I would probably freeze like rice or some of the proteins before I freeze the cooked vegetables. I just don't know if I like them when they're unfrozen. Okay, so we'll do some research on that. Thank you for that question. All right, so for the sake of this webinar today, we will talk about meal prep for individually portioned meals, because again, we think this is what we usually think about when we're talking meal prep. So when we discuss individually portioned meals, there are several steps involved. So the first step is what I actually mentioned earlier, is to decide which meal prepped method fits your lifestyle, right? So then after that, the next step is to decide which meal you want to focus on. Is it going to be breakfast, lunch, or dinner? And so we want to recommend to start with one meal you'd like to prepare for. And it's just easier, especially if you're a beginner, to just focus on one meal a day that you want to prep for, because you don't want the meal prep to become too consuming, too stressful, right? If you're trying to meal prep all your meals for the day, it just can be a little bit overwhelming. So start with one meal a day to meal prep for, and also maybe try just one recipe. And that may not be for everyone, because if you like a variety of different meals throughout the day and you like to be creative with your meals throughout the week, just having one recipe for your breakfast, for example, the entire week may not be ideal for you. But ideally, it would be nice to start with one meal a day with one recipe just to get started. You can also choose two recipes if you want. So choose two recipes if you really want a little bit of variety. Then second step is to look at your recipe or recipes that you chose for your breakfast, for example, and put together a grocery list. So, sorry, that's step 3. Yeah, and then go shopping. Buy all the ingredients ahead of time. So when you're ready to meal prep, you want to make sure everything that you need is on hand and you don't miss anything. And by the way, before you go shopping, make sure to check your pantry first. A lot of times we have a lot of staples on hand that we will use for our recipes. So don't forget to check the pantry to make sure you're not buying stuff and ingredients that you already have on hand. You don't need to double things and overspend. So after you went and got all your groceries, put away some time, schedule on your calendar to actually do your meal prep or do the most of your cooking, right? You guys were very good in your responses to our question earlier today, but on average, it's going to take about an hour and a half and 2 hours to prepare 4 or 5 lunches for the week. Now, it's all going to depend on, again, how many meals you're making, right? How many, the complexity of your recipes, and but on average, it's going to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And that does not include the shopping time. So this is just for your meal prep time. And then step number 5, once you made your meal and calculated how many portions you will need for the week, you just need to portion them all out in individual containers and store them for easy grab and go during the week. So there you go. We have 5 steps. We decide on which meal of the day we want to prep. We choose our recipe. We go shopping. We set aside time to make enough to last us a week of that recipe, and then we portion them out in separate containers to eat throughout the next days. So for today's webinar, we decided to share a wonderful idea for your breakfast. Overnight oats is a great way to meal prep for the week. It's a healthy breakfast that provides you know, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbs, a little bit of healthy fats and fiber. And so this recipe was provided by one of our Sharp registered dietitians, so Vince Alvarez, and his recipe is for 1 serving. Now, because we're talking meal prep today, the recipe can be doubled or tripled, so you can make 2, 3, or 4 servings to last you 2, 3, or 4 mornings, and that is going to be your meal prep for the week for breakfast. So I'm going to unshare myself right now and then try and play the video. Wish me luck. Okay. How's everyone doing so far?
Someone's asking if the oatmeal turns out mushy. I've never tried it.
Well, it's a little bit because there is a little bit of milk in there too. So it does turn a little mushy. So if you don't like the texture, maybe that particular recipe is not going to be for you. So sorry about the delay. I'm trying to pull that recipe.
Yeah, and I also do rolled oats versus quick oats, and rolled oats are just like a stiffer oats, and so throughout the week it'll eventually soak up, your milk or oat milk or whatever, liquid you're putting in there. And also spoilage, I think you're good for like 3 to 4 days out. I've had it when I've made 5, or even if you wanted to do Sunday through Wednesday and then make a new batch Thursday and Friday, you can do it that way as well.
Yeah. This oatmeal, once you prepare several enough batches, they can last you. I'm sorry, the link is not working. I'm trying again. Those can last you 4 or 5 days for sure.
Yeah. Just make sure your milk or whatever non-dairy beverage you're putting in there is good for that next week.
Yeah, that the milk is fresh. Okay, let me see if we can do this. Okay, my apologies. I am gonna try and share one more time. Include computer sound. Yes, so far so good. All right, everyone, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to Enjoy the Kitchen. Vince here. I have a healthy breakfast idea called overnight oatmeal. It takes a few minutes prep the night before. It can get you off and running in the morning. This recipe is a good source of protein, fiber, and healthy fats, along with vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. For one serving, I'm using quarter cup rolled oats, half a cup rice milk. However, you can use almond, soy, or even regular milk. Well, of course, the 1% or fat-free milk. A quarter banana that's mashed, 1 tablespoon natural peanut butter with no added ingredients, 1 teaspoon chia. Now you can grind the chia for added nutrition benefit. I have 1 medjool date that's chopped and mashed. Now this is optional if you're trying to watch your carbs, since 1 date has 18 grams of carbs. And finally, I have a pinch of cinnamon. From here it's easy. Just place all your ingredients into a mason jar. I have a few sizes. I have a 12 ounce and a 16 ounce, and for this recipe I'm going to use the small one. Place all your ingredients in the jar. Mix it together a bit. Put the lid on and place it in the refrigerator. The next morning, you'll be treated to a healthy breakfast. You can spoon into a bowl, top it off with a few strawberries and blueberries, or you can toss it into your lunch bag and take it to work. It makes a great snack later in the day. Okay, there you go, a healthy breakfast idea, overnight oatmeal. Experiment with some of your favorite ingredients, have fun, and enjoy. Until I see you next time, stay well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vince.
I love overnight oats.
Yeah,
It's
me
just
too.
so easy. And it
Yeah.
actually holds me over pretty much until we have our lunchtime. And
Yeah.
that's eating it around like 8:30, and it's pretty
Yeah.
filling.
Yeah, it has all the right balance of all the right ingredients. As Vince mentioned, there is fiber, there is protein, there is healthy fats, there is carbohydrates. You don't need a lot, and it just gives you this long-lasting energy. And I was just thinking how somebody asked about the oats being mushy. I'm thinking if you put a little less milk, right, it may be less mushy as after you take it out.
Yeah.
So just an idea. It's something you probably wanted to experiment with as you're trying this recipe. Okay, so let's continue.
And someone was asking, can we
Okay.
heat up overnight oats? I have not done it, Olga. Have you heated up overnight
I
oats from the
have not
fridge?
done it. I think
Something
the
we'll have to
idea,
research.
yeah, good question. Yeah.
Or
I don't
anybody
know.
else here want to share your experience with heating up overnight oats? I
Yeah,
think the premise is just that, or is this for somebody? Jade, are you possibly asking because you don't like cold oats in the morning? That could be a reason why people like warm cereal in the
That's a good
morning.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly why Jade's asking.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Good question, Jade. We will research that and definitely share with the group. I've not done it, but I can imagine it wouldn't be bad. I mean, it may cook the oats a little bit more. Maybe look into maybe steel cut oats, maybe. Um, Depends on how long you heat it up for. 30 seconds. Are you looking to cook them even further in a minute? You know, how long we cook our oats for. We'll look into that for you for sure.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't hurt just to even put it in the microwave for just a few seconds to make it a little warmer so that you're not eating that cold breakfast in the morning if that's not your cup of tea. Yeah, but a wonderful question. I think we should definitely look into this. And we have a few really helpful tips for you to share, but I just also wanted to give you some suggestions for lunches. And this particular slide is basically just a hack, right? So it's not necessarily for individually prepped meals. This slide is for the prepped ingredients. Basically, you make 4 base recipes, and then using those 4 base recipes, you can make 5 great lunches with just a few extra ingredients to add to them. And so yesterday you all should have received a handout that includes all these recipes and with the lunch ideas that you can assemble. But the idea is very simple. You make your chicken, you make a lot of chicken, you make a lot of vegetables, you make your quinoa, or you can use rice, and then you create vinaigrette from scratch. And those 4 recipes can give you really, really great lunches for the whole week without really doing much more. So let us know if you have any questions about any of those recipes, but you all should have them on your handout. Any questions about this? I just don't want to go through the actual recipes. It's going to take a long time.
No questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so flavor tips. If you're like me and you potentially get bored about 2 meals in, possibly 3 meals in of the same type of spice that you've used on that chicken or whatever protein you're using, a really great website we shared in the document we shared with you is called 10 Basic Flavor Profiles to Keep Meal Prep Interesting. And so a flavor profile is a set of basic and common spices, seasonings, and aromatics that emulate a specific cuisine. So what I've shared here is Asian inspired. It's straight off of this website that we gave credit to, having ground garlic on hand, star anise, sesame oil, white or brown rice, coriander, soy sauce, sriracha. Of course, buying your beef, chicken, and tofu has to be fresh. Ground ginger, rice vinegar, fresh garlic or fresh ginger, and noodles. These are some just basic things that kind of give that Asian inspired meal for your meal prep. So for example, I know that it can be quite the investment on the front end when we're buying spices or ingredients. But if you know that you're someone who favors Asian cuisine or Thai cuisine, or, that's also Asian, but also, Mexican cuisine, Moroccan cuisine, what have you, and you know that you would use spices quite often, and they're good for, 1 to 2 years if you're keeping them in the right containers and in the pantry and they're not going stale, that these are good things to have on hand because you're going to start seeing in the recipes that you compile, these are very commonly used. So you may even look up, if you're looking for this example is Asian inspired. So if you're looking up, a recipe with rice vinegar, fresh ginger, sriracha, and white or brown rice, maybe type that in on Google to find recipes with these components in it so that you're using your ingredients as they are fresh. You've opened them up, so you want to use them in a certain amount of time, at least 6 months to a year, just depending on what their shelf life is. Just make sure you check on that. But I found this website to be very, very helpful on different types of cuisine. So make sure you check back on that and just to have those different spices on hand. So with the flavor tips, if you are preparing roasted chicken, possibly marinate that with some Asian inspired for 2 to 3 days, right out. And then the next batch, which would be the same amount, the same time you're cooking that same chicken, portion out a couple days that are Mexican inspired, where you have your cumin and your, cayenne pepper and other types of spices as well. So that way you can switch up the flavor during the week, so you're not just here eating like the same thing. To me, sometimes I feel like, gosh, this thing is tasting like cardboard, but a lot of people are fine with it. They love the flavor. They could eat the same thing every day. I'm not that person. I need a little different here. I need a little different thing going on here. So I found this website to be very helpful, and I hope that you guys all too.
Yeah, I don't mind. I can eat the same flavor all week, but again, it doesn't mean if you like a variety, it doesn't mean you can't meal prep, right? You can still be creative with your flavors using those tips. So I think it's all very customizable, and just because you like variety doesn't mean you can't meal prep. All right, we only have 10 minutes left. We should, we should probably keep going.
So here's some easy tips here. So refrigeration at 40 degrees or lower for 1 to 2 days. Cooked ground poultry or ground beef can stay fine in the fridge. 3 to 4 days out, cooked whole meals that have fish and poultry or soups and stews. That's if you're refrigerating. 5 days out, cooked beans and hummus. 1 week, hard-boiled eggs, chopped vegetables if stored in an airtight container. 2 weeks out, soft cheese if it's already been opened, and then 5 to 6 weeks out, hard cheeses if they're open. And so the next one I believe is on refrigeration. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
freezer.
Yeah.
Freezer tips at 0 degrees or lower. 2 to 3 months out, if you're putting them in a airtight, sealed container or a zip top bag, soups and stews or cooked beans. 3 to 6 months out, cooked or ground meat or in poultry. 6 to 8 months out, berries and chopped fruit such as bananas and pears and plums, on the go things that you make, your morning smoothies with, stored in a freezer bag. 8 to 12 months out, vegetables if blanched first. So here's that tip: blanch first for about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the vegetable. And I would even say like the harder vegetables such as French beans or asparagus, ones that are a little bit harder, or broccoli, things that are a little bit tougher. Cauliflower can be blanched easily and then stored for 8 to 12 months. And I think it's really easy if you portion them out even in little sandwich bags. That way they're portion controlled for 3 meals out, 4 meals out in that way. Unless you're doing a big batch, put the whole thing in a gallon size if you need to, and if you're making some kind of a meal that way.
Yeah. I find this tips really helpful. Hopefully you guys too.
Yes, and we'll send out those tips, Jade. Yes, we'll put them in the chat box. So we just want to remind you to work smarter and not harder. So again, tips that I've learned and Olga has learned throughout meal prepping: save time. If you're in a time crunch, and you just use pre-cut produce or pre-cut meats, if that helps you. Buy pre-made dressings, for example, spice mixes and sauces, if that saves you time at the end of the day. Or when you're buying your produce, wash and cut your produce as soon as you get home. I don't do this, and I need to do this. You'll be more likely to snack on the fruits and vegetables throughout the week if they're already washed and ready to go. And they're all pretty and nice in the containers, all set to go and ready to grab in your fridge.
Yeah. And I know, buying pre-cut produce or pre-cooked meats may be a little bit more expensive, but if we are looking in the long run, if you're not cooking at home or meal prepping, then most likely you're going to be ordering out, right? Or going out to eat. So that bag of pre-cut vegetables may be $5-6, but the meal that you're gonna pay for if you go out or order out to eat is gonna be $10. So it's gonna be a little more expensive. So I feel that it's actually worth it to buy those things that are pre-made for you and pre-cut for you, to kind of even save you more time throughout the meal prep process.
Yeah, and just check on the bag if it needs to be washed or not, but pretty much sometimes they're triple washed, so you don't have to worry about it. But just make sure you check to see if they need to be washed, especially produce.
Yeah.
We know how that can always has issues in the farms. So things to remember, starting with clean meal prep containers. Amazon is a great place. I'm not here, promoting Amazon, but I've bought many containers from Amazon. I'm sure Costco has some great ones, and Home Goods, one of my favorites. Home Goods has some great meal prep containers, especially if you're into glass and you're not sure about the plastic containers and BPA and all that. Check out Home Goods as well. Having your shopping list ready, that way you're not, going off the beaten path and getting distracted at the grocery store. It'll help keep, your line and your budget in place.
And don't go hungry. Don't go shopping hungry. Yeah, because that's gonna distract you as well. So try to have a snack before you go grocery shopping, and just stick to your list. Stick to your list.
And then multitasking other components during your prep time. So while you're cooking your chicken, for example, clean and prep your veggies and fruit. Make a sauce, make your dressing, cook quinoa. So these are just ideas that I'm just kind of popping out there, that while you're doing certain things, do things at the same time. That way you're not just waiting for something to cook. You've got other things going on, and that will definitely make your time more efficient and effective. And then stocking your pantry with staple ingredients, just as I mentioned, whether they're those the spices, for example, that are staple because you constantly have these types of different cuisines throughout the year.
Yeah, and I have one more tip to add to that list. Because you are in control of your meal prep, use that as an opportunity to keep your meals balanced and nourishing. Right, so the healthiest meal prep emphasize whole foods such as fruits and vegetables, legumes, lean proteins, healthy fats, and try to limit the sources of refined grains and sugar, excess salt, and things like that. So as you are going through your meal prep planning and looking for different recipes to add to your toolbox, just think about all these good foods that you want to use, and all these good food groups that are nourishing and good for your body. So just an opportunity um, to even take better care of your health as you're meal prepping, as you're going into this meal prep journey. Oh, I think this is it, Janice. I think we have
Yes, it
4 more
is.
minutes. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, we hope you enjoyed this webinar, but if you have any more questions, please let us know. Right now, we have a few more minutes. We'd like to address those questions if we can. If not, we'll make sure to do some research and respond to you individually or in the
For
chat.
sure. And somebody asked for our meal prep guide for refrigeration and freezing tips. I just sent that out in the chat. It's towards the bottom
It's
of
also,
the article.
yeah, it's also on the handout that we sent out yesterday.
Perfect. A lot of people are just grateful, Olga, and they're thanking us, and they thought this information was really helpful.
Yeah.
So if you need to view this again later, we're going to record it. So I'll go ahead and I'll share the hyperlink once I've edited this recording. So that way, if you need to hear anything again, you can play it at any time.
Yeah. And we're so grateful for everyone who joined today and learned something and took that time for yourself. And as you can see, meal prep can be a wonderful, wonderful strategy to add to your personal health and wellness toolkit. It can help you be, healthier and make your busy life easier and can save you a little bit money. And it may sound a little overwhelming at first, but it really is not. You just need to focus on one strategy, one meal, one recipe, and then go from there.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully it will become something you will enjoy doing in the long haul.
Yes. And again, Olga Hayes, olga.hayes@sharp.com, and I'm Janice Chinquanco. I'm the only one in the system. I know I have a long last name, but feel free. I love sharing recipes, especially, even the simple thing as, if we have a rotisserie chicken and you're trying to make 4 or 5 different meals out of one chicken, how do we do it? I'm your gal for that. So go ahead and email us. We are so happy to share our tips of, of our trade, I guess you could say. So thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, and we have Sharp Best Health has a section on SharpNet that has wonderful recipes that you can experiment with and see if you can add them to your recipe toolbox. But yeah, we strive to provide recipes that are healthy but also easy to make. So you don't need to go to culinary school to be able to make those at home.
Right, we sure didn't. we like to pretend.
Like to pretend, for sure. Jen, right, well, thank you everyone again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And thank you so much again for joining us. We appreciate it.